to today's webinar, where we will be discussing urgent call to halt political-driven trials at ICT in Bangladesh. So I'm Bablin Mollik. I'm the host this year, joining you from UK, Cardiff. But I have with me Polo Kasaka, who is a former member of European Parliament and Executive Director of South Asian Democratic Forum. I also have with me Mr. Masoom Billah, and he is Professor of Law and visiting researcher as well. So very renowned in Bangladesh for his law background too. So thank you both for joining us. Unfortunately, Chris Blackburn can't join us due to health reasons, but we'll carry on with the discussion. This forum and webinar is being hosted by Freedom and Justice Alliance and in association with European Bangladesh Forum, UK and Europe, South Asia Democratic Forum, Brussels, where Polo's coming and representing, and Working Group of Bangladesh in German Earth Civilization. So welcome all. Just to start us off today, so I did say I'm Bablin Mollik, so I'm actually in UK, and I've been brought up in UK, and I have, although my heritage is in Bangladesh, I have no political alliance, shall I say, or interest in what's happening in Bangladesh. But I am a Liberal Democrat councillor in UK, and therefore I do hold fairness, justice and democracy very close to everything I do. So that's what has inclined me into joining this forum and hosting this forum. But can I just ask from Polo, why is this of an interest to you? And similar question to Masoom. So Polo, if you want to start us off.
Well, Babin, thank you so much for chairing this meeting and to give your voice to such an important cause. I would say that it is perhaps my earliest memories of childhood were exactly the genocide in Bangladesh, of course, brought through the musical pop culture, Joan Baez, George Harrison. These were, I'm Portuguese, and I was in Portugal. I was in a boarding institution, and I was just studying my English, and I was trying to understand a bit all of it, and I was very, very, very much impressed from every point of view. The human dimension to start with, of course, but also for the political meaning. And when I created a South Asia Democratic Forum, one of the issues that really kept me more focused was exactly this genocide, because the problem, as I see it, is that the Western world never recognized it. The Western world has always looked at it as something that would have been somehow justifiable for geopolitical reasons. Mr. Kissinger was actually the architect of the thinking. I think that Mr. Kissinger was a tremendous disaster for the United States. I mean, it's very difficult to say that in the United States, because both sides have the political spectrum. If you say that, you will say, oh, I'm not really saying an anathema. I remembered one of my friends, in the United States, a professor of political science, just replying to me, yes, but of course, he was not American. He was German, as a matter of fact, to justify. But all the hypocrisy, not only hypocrisy, but stupidity, to say very bluntly, it's stupidity to put in your mind that the way to contain your geopolitical opponent, at the time it was the Soviet Union, from reaching what were at the time known as the warm waters, because the Soviet Union otherwise would have to go to the northern waters, and to justify the carnage and the stupidity of this all. I mean, it's absolutely amazing. And I have been a member of the European Parliament for 10 years. I am quite a believer in what we can call, I don't like very much the expression West, but the set of values that have been informing transatlantic cooperation. I am, and I continue to be. And I don't think that, for instance, Russia is really a very good friend of the situation. Well, okay, but I'm perhaps speaking a bit too much. Just telling you that this is, a tremendously important moment. We are about to celebrate the Victory Day, December the 16th, of Bangladesh. It is absolutely equivalent to the Victory Day of that we celebrate on May the 8th in Europe for 1945, but nobody has a clue about it. To start with, Bangladesh is very badly known. We actually we had in Portugal, I saw it. There was we have now a lot of Bangladeshi migrants, and so there was an traditional extreme right guy that said, "Oh, Portugal is not Bangladesh." There was a big fuss about it, and so a lot of newspapers sent people to Bangladesh just to say what it was about, and even the former king of Portugal, the descendant of the king. Oh, we went there as well, outrage. How can you say something like that about Bangladesh? And I was reading the reports, and these people were just saying enormities. They don't know what they are saying. We have a big problem of ignorance regarding Bangladesh, regarding Bengal, which is an ancient civilization, one of the most important ancient civilizations in the world that we practically know nothing about. We don't understand nothing. And we are covering a tremendous crime that happened in 71. We never sorted it out, and that's why it is a bit re-happening again. Sorry, I'm speaking too much.
Yeah. So that interest in the Bangladeshi country or Bangladesh from Europe side is still feeling the impact from what happened back in 1971, right, Paolo? Is that what you're saying?
Well, it's the reason why personalities that have dedicated all their life to justice from this genocide, well, like Shariar Kabir, why is it targeted so much with inventions on presumed crimes that he had been doing? Because of this. Because what motivates these people is to rewrite the history of 71.
Yeah, okay. I'll bring in Mr. Masoom Billah. Do you want to state your interest in this particular subject matter mainly?
Thanks very much. Thanks very much, Dr. Malik. Such a privilege to find myself on the same panel with Paulo Casaca. Thank you very much. Well, my motivation and interest for international criminal law has both historical, legal, and personal dimensions. Look at this history that one jurist from the then East Pakistan, Mr. Justice Radha Vinod Paul, was a judge of the Tokyo Tribunal, and his dissenting opinion has been very famous, widely quoted and studied. So when I came across as a law academic his dissenting opinion, that attracted me much about, to know more about this branch of international law. That's one. Second, as a nation, we have this 1971. We are a war-torn country. We carry the trauma of history. And it's very interesting to note that Bangladesh is the first country in the world to enact a domestic law International Crimes Tribunal Act 1973 in the post-independence setting, right? The first reflections of the Nuremberg principles, of the Tokyo principles. But unfortunately, due to the then contemporary political, geopolitical reasons, the tribunal could not have functioned. It was only in 2009 that the tribunal got revived through the mandate of the people. So in order to meet the requirement of history to ensure justice for the victims of 1971, Bangladesh, and arguably all international community owed this just causes responsibility to ensure justice for the victims. So as a law academic, that matter also interests me. Thirdly, it is with a mixed feeling that the very political party in Bangladesh, which championed the justice process of 1971, is under the legal scrutiny now by the same process. So this is an irony of history and travesty of fate. And that also needs attention, that whether it has at all reversed the total picture and scenario, and to what extent the glory of Bangladesh's contribution to the international criminal law that has made previously is now being, whether is at risk. So as a law academic, I am interested to see that to what extent Bangladesh is still making herself relevant to the corpus of international criminal law, like crimes against humanity, genocide law, and etc. So it's fine to see your country being so relevant and uttered in the area of the trial of international criminal law, but at the same time, it is disheartening to see that Bangladesh is struggling to meet the requirements of international justice, fairness, and due process. Thanks very much.
Yes. So, we have mentioned now about I guess, what happened historically. Is it coming into play in what's happening now? And is it a reversal, as Masoom also mentioned, of what happened in this very courts to seek justice from 1971 happening and the genocide then? So what is it? The ICT laws were amended in this process of trial this time. Just who would want to?
Do you want me to address this?
Yes, go ahead. Yeah, because you did touch on it. So
just I will take you back a bit to the history. The International Crimes Tribunal has major three stages of its development. One is, I have just mentioned, 1973, the year when the law was actually enacted, but the tribunal was not set up per se.
No.
Second stage is in 2009, actually 2010, when Bangladesh fulfilled its commitment and brought all the auxiliary forces known as Razakars, Al-Badrs, and Al-Shams, who were local collaborators to the Pakistani army. They were brought to justice. And third stage is 2024, soon after the 5th August change, the 1973 law was actually changed very controversially by presidential ordinance through executive whim four times, and majority of them was to change the idea of presumption of innocence. If you are even named in the charge, you are being sacked from any position and you are ineligible to contest in the election. That's number one. Second, politically targeted amendments like targeting Awami League or targeting Sheikh Hasina or the intelligence members who worked with the then Prime Minister. So some amendments has been made to implicate the targeted groups. Fourthly, the threshold of crimes against humanity or the elements of crimes against humanity has been changed, apparently inserting the concept of widespread and systematic attack, but at the same time, very cleverly maintaining the standard that in case of any inconsistency with the ICC statute, the Bangladesh provision will prevail. And most controversially, changing the scope of the law. Previously, it was only for the 1971 crimes. Now it has extended its area of application to the July incidents. So these are some most controversial amendments that has been made by the interim government, which takes us back to the root of the very proceedings, which is probably one of the reasons why the title of today's discussion has been so made. So, before starting any discussion about the trial itself, about the questions of due process itself, let us not forget that 4 times the law has been changed at the whim of the executive authority who are unelected,
Well, that's it.
and whose whole legal structure they are breathing in is controversial. It is not that much constitutional. Is founded on very controversial principles of constitutionality. So that based on this nullity, this tribunal has been reconstituted and formed. Probably it is not the same tribunal which was actually contemplated by the forefathers, by our framers of 1973 law.
Interesting. And Paulo, I mean, do you have any comments to make in what is happening and what Masum has just described from European perspective? You're on mute, Paulo.
Exactly. Sorry. No, exactly the European perspective is that this is as if we would have had those who are in the side of the defendants in the Nuremberg trials, the lawyers for the accused and the accused to get power, to get actually a violent uprising. It is a complex uprising, but anyway, there is violence, and it succeeded because the military decided it to succeed. So from this point of view, it is a military coup. And so after this, 50 years after, you would reverse Nuremberg. That's what has been done. The lawyers, the most famous lawyers of the defendants of the procedures were nominated as prosecutors. And those who stood by testifying for the victims, and the name of Shahriar Kabir obviously comes in because his life, he is less young than me, and his decades of life are full of documentation, films. He dedicated his life, most of his life, to the truth. That's what he did. I mean, he's an intellectual. I mean, he never carried a gun in his life, but he's accused of genocide and murder. And when the United Nations working group on unlawful arrests, asked the authority, why do you accuse him of assassination? Well, they go, oh well, there is this television debate where he did say nasty things about the Islamists, And so, I mean, the people there, the working group was absolutely stunned. How, how was it possible that such a reply was given, you know? Actually, they thought that they would find still the old Westerners. So, I mean, it is absolutely preposterous what's going on. This ICT is a reversed Nuremberg. It's what it is.
I
For
see.
Europeans to understand it, this is a reversed Nuremberg. There is no other way of speaking about it. And the whole of the legal framework, the reason why there are, you know, at least more than 50,000 accusations of murder leveled to everyone that was either was important because it was a member of the parliament, because it was in government, because it was a journalist, because whatever that opposed the extremists, the extreme rights, the jihadi extreme rights that some don't understand here in Europe. That's the real extreme right. This is the one. I mean, they are accused of murder. I mean, without any basis whatsoever, on an invented basis. I mean, this reversal of the reality is actually the pure materialization of the worst of the dystopic view of George Orwell in 1984. We have been abusing the parallel so many times that people sometimes don't get it. But this is the real one. It did not happen before. I mean, he was obviously exaggerating regarding the Soviet Union. Obviously, he was. And actually, Mr. Putin, he has a point saying that he was also referring to the West, because actually the decline of the English language, which is a very important writing document of George Orwell, is the one where we understand the techniques that we will see later on in 1984. So he thought that the decline of the English language was already allowing this reversal of reality. Okay, but getting back to Bangladesh, this is obviously a problem for the country, for Bangladesh, but this is a world problem. Bangladesh is one of the biggest countries in the world, the 8th biggest country, I think. And what is happening there is nothing, you know, that can be seen as an exotic curiosity. You know, it's fundamental for all of us, for Europe, and for everybody else. We cannot cope with this state of things. We cannot cope with an institutional framework that only now starts to adapt to reality, because for 1.5 years, people were looking the other side. Oh, it's a Nobel Peace Prize. Oh, so as it is a Nobel Peace Prize, it should be very good what he is doing. Well, no, actually, the nomination process was already a problem. But this is another chapter that we could discuss a bit further.
Yeah. Well, I've got in front of me a quote that has come out from the director of IBARI, which is the International Bar Association Human Rights Institute, and where the director, Baroness Helena Kennedy, said, "It is deeply troubling to see justice system in Bangladesh misused to advance unfair and at times politically motivated trials. Every trial is a test of states' commitment to justice and human rights." That's some powerful words. So where does Bangladesh justice system lie on the global stage at the moment? You know, so let's go back to fair trial. You know, so can you maybe Masoom can start us off with what constitutes a fair trial, and why are they concerns?
Well, at the outset, let me be very clear that the July incidents and atrocities must be brought to justice.
Of course, yes.
And full comprehensive accountability must be ensured, but not at the cost of due process and fair trial.
Indeed. That's
Now,
not doing justice then, is it?
Right. Exactly. Now, international criminal law, which is being reflected in the 1973 Act, right? The role of this law is to play Portia. I mean, you can take blood from my body. You can take flesh, but please take care that no blood shed. So that's the role of due process, criminal trial. Now, what is fair trial that has been well defined and recognized by domestic law and international law as well? The treaty law, the human rights law, humanitarian law, customary international law. They have recognized that right to fair trial is a fundamental human right. And arguably, this has enjoyed the status of just causes principles. For the readers, I further clarify it for our viewers. It has culminated into a peremptory norms of international law, where no derogation is permissible. I mean, the state parties, or even the states who are no parties to the major international instruments, cannot put this excuse that, well, we are not obligated to follow the standard of due process, fairness. The fairness which has been clearly mentioned by Article 14 of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, acronymed as ICCPR. There are 13 rights which fall within the domain of due process rights or fair trial rights. To name a few, Bubbly, one is right to be tried by a competent, note this word, competent, independent, and impartial tribunal. Will you tell me that the tribunal in Bangladesh is competent, where none of the judges were a judge at all? None of the judges are trained in international criminal law. One of the retired judges who was actually took retirement in 2019 has only the experience of doing civil law and normal domestic penal law, has been just for the sake of this politically motivated trial, was appointed as the High Court Division as a probationary judge. Soon after appointing him, after 1 week, he was given the charge of the chairmanship of the tribunal. Can you imagine it? Is this a competent tribunal? And what about independence and impartial? I mean, I will give you some example how this tribunal has compromised the principles of independence and impartiality. Like, second requirement of fair trial is the accused must know what is the allegation, must know the charges, and must be able to give ample opportunity to prepare her case, to defend herself. Right to counsel, right to be tried without any undue delay. That does not mean that it should be in a hurry, in a month time, in a week time. I mean, the other day it was, the charge was framed, and now today you have come up with a verdict of death sentence, and death sentence of a public figure who has a 40 careers, 40 years of, public political life. So that's another thing. To be present or not to be tried in absentia, then examining the witnesses, right to remain silent, right to equality, right to appeal. You know what the law in Bangladesh currently as it is, and if you are being tried in absentia, within 30 days you need to lodge an appeal to the appellate division. But if you are not absent, you lose the right to appeal. Now you tell me whether it fulfills the requirement of due process. And I can give you other names as well. What are the requirements required by international human rights law and international customary law, which has defined in no uncertain terms the standard of fairness? Now, back in Bangladesh, the Constitution of Bangladesh itself, in Article 31, has said that no person shall be deprived of life, liberty, body, property, reputation, save in accordance with law. So it has two aspects. One is substantive due process, another is procedural due process. Substantive due process demand that law itself should be fair. Now, I have just referred in my previous intervention that the law itself is unfair. It has been made unfair. So the substantive due process has been violated. Now, coming to the procedural due process, you will see that who has been the judges, who has done the investigations. The other day, I was listening over this, judgment reading out by the judges who was struggling to pronounce their own, judgments. Probably it is not written by themselves. I doubt it very much. Then what happened? They are saying, they are referring to the report of the OACHR. Now, let me tell you, this OACHR report in none of the places has confirmed that crimes against humanity has taken place. In page number 61, they have mentioned that to be sure that the crimes against humanity has taken place, further investigation is necessary by the competent authority.
That's
And
right.
who is that competent authority who has done this further crime? The OACR is not mandated by the Human Rights Council. Rather, they are commissioned by the Yunus government itself, who is a party to the conflict. Now, you see the violation of the natural justice principle that no man can be a judge of his own cause. So the very fundamental norms of justice has been violated. Now, trial in absentia, all the international standard established by the International Criminal Court or the ICTY, ICTR, or Sierra Leone, or Cambodia, whichever you mention, they have set the standard that, well, the person must be assertively, abandoning the right to appear, number one. Number two, there must be effective communication between the lawyer and the accused. And the law must ensure that upon reappearance, there must be a provision of retrial. The UK House of Lords in Mainuddin case even mentioned this. I refer these cases because these cases is frequently cited by the other side, the currently turned prosecutor who was a defense side lawyer previously, right? Now look at the prosecution team, as Paulo has rightly mentioned, that this person was defending the Jamaat Islam leaders. Now, the prosecutor are full of Jamaat Islam members. So this is I'm an almost textual example of a politically motivated trial. And the chief prosecutor was seen at a procession where his political party, AB party, is demanding the banning of Awami League. And the judge, one of the judges, he was found to participate in a demonstration against Sheikh Hasina on 4th August. Look at the partiality standard and the impartial nature of the prosecution. So it is a politically vindicated trial, I should mention. The last hearing was on 30th November. The judgment date was 17th November. Now, Dr. Babling, they have relied upon, on the short order, I'm talking on the basis of the short order they have made. They just read out for the audience. They have referred to doctrine of joint criminal enterprise, Paulo. Joint criminal enterprise. Now, what is joint criminal enterprise? You know, it is a highly controversial doctrine. They have applied it into political question, and you must be aware that the initial enthusiasm about JCE faded long ago, and scholars doubt that its breadth has dominated over the debate, because this doctrine suffers from flaws like it blurs the line between intent and knowledge, extends the liability to unforeseeable acts to others, and it treats all participants as equally culpable regardless of their actual role. Now, if you apply it into a political context where a elected prime minister is trying to deal with the unruly mob, right? And you are applying joint criminal enterprise wrongly to a domestic setup. So this is a misapplication and misuse of international criminal law. I would argue, Dr. Bablin, that the principle of international criminal law has suffered a serious jolt into the hands of the Bangladeshi judges, Bangladeshi tribunal. And another doctrine they have relied, I'm sorry I'm taking much time in this.
It's important
please bear
points.
with me 1 or 2 minutes more.
Yes.
They have relied on command responsibility or superior responsibility, which is usually applied in war context, in conflict, in armed conflict context. So if you want to apply it to a political context in normal time, right, you must be very much aware of it. What is the evidence? The evidence is 3 audio tape record where the former prime minister is heard to talk over phone with a vice chancellor of a university. Look, a vice chancellor, a civilian person of a university, and 2 of his political colleagues. And what is the content? Content is that the fate the Jamaat Islam leaders embraced in the ICT tribunal, the same kind of fate will be to this new kind of militants. Now, apparently, this sentence of the so-called sentence, I'm not sure, it is not actually verified by their own way. It is not independently verified. Now, look at what is the culpability here. It is open to interpretation. Now, you are telling that using of drones, using of helicopters, or ordering the police officers to use lethal weapons, and you are interpreting as commanding responsibility. Such a dangerous argument. Because out of 1,400 people who died in the July incident, more than half of them has died after 5th August. So if Sheikh Hasina is culpably, criminally responsible for the deaths before 5th August, will you argue that Professor Yunus is criminally responsible for the post 5th August responsible on the basis of commanding responsibility? No political leader will be escaped, I think. So this has set a dangerous precedent. So this is also, once again, a very misapplication, because I did not actually find any, as a law academic, I was a keen observer of this judgment. They are referring that at Chankar Pool, as a point of Dhaka city, some 6 people died. At Uttora or some other point, some more 6 people died. The Rangpur incident of infamous Abu Said incident, right? So all of these things, how is this related to the phone conversation with a Dhaka Varsity vice chancellor? Isn't it a very wrong and misplaced application of criminal? So you talk about application of law, you talk about observing the standard of fairness. Oh, I forgot to mention, they have relied about 60% of the total evidence on the testimony of the ex-IGP, Inspector General of Police, who has been an approver, who is an accomplice. Accomplice himself is an accused. Now, on the agreement reached between the state and the co-accused and the accomplice Abdullah Al-Mamun, that he is shown leniency, pardon, right? And just you have seen that he has been awarded 5-year death sentences. Probably that will also be pardoned sometimes later. Now, the international criminal law imposes a high threshold upon relying or believing on the testimony of an approver. It must be independently corroborated. Now, if on earth the Prime Minister orders the IGP, the other member of the disciplinary committee, national disciplinary committee, must hear about it. Now, my question is whether other members of the National Core Committee has been consulted with before relying upon this concocted evidence. No? If that is not the whole judgment is a nullity.
Mm.
So I stop here. I can give you hundreds of
Plenty
examples.
more to think about. And you gave us lots, actually, failings that identified. And that kind of puts back the question I said after reading the statement about the justice system and human rights in Bangladesh. Paulo, what's your comment around that? What's the international view of the justice system of Bangladesh currently?
Well, I think that thank you very much, Masoom. You really you explained the technicalities of the issue very, very well. We can very, very well understand that if judges, I mean that none has any experience as judge, and the prosecutors that have experience as defending the defendants. I mean, this is a bit obvious, but I would continue because that I think that no crime, whatever crime, must be thought over and as not important. And of course, I think even during Sheikh Hasina's time that the issue of enforced disappearances was already a very important one. Something I think that she allowed to continue. She did not invent nothing on this area. Things were going exactly this way. The armed forces, some of the departments of the armed forces thought were allowed to continue things that they shouldn't do, of course. The whole of the incidents, I mean, the whole of the rebellion, of course, there is a political side to it. The question is that, unfortunately, so many years after 71, the history of Bangladesh has been military dictatorship or changes of government following violence. Very exceptionally, this does not happen like that. And this was again the case. But of course, all the crimes have to be looked at. As the former Minister of Foreign Affairs was testifying very recently in a conference in Geneva, when I was inquired by this United Nations team that was actually commissioned by Mr. Yunus, which is unbelievable. I mean, I explained everything, all my human rights that were disrespected. I mean, I was not only forced to abandon my country, but my property, the property of my relatives, everything was vandalized, robbed, people aggressed, and that's not an exception. That's the rule. And of course, this should, and this has been transmitted. They heard, the team of the United Nations, and all of this did not put a comma in the very big report about this. Okay, and many other things. This is an issue that obviously has costed Bangladesh very dearly, because we are only now seeing what should be obvious 1.5 years before. And because Mr. Yunus had a lot of accomplices within this Mr. Volker Turk to start with. It's absolutely unacceptable the way he proceeded, the way that I mean, he appears publicly with Mr. Yunus like his best friend, and then at the same time he claims that he's chairing an investigation on something commissioned by Mr. Yunus. I mean, the conflict of interest is so obvious. I mean, but he does not even seem to understand that he cannot. That if he does that, at least he has to try to hide it. No, he does not even try to hide it. I mean, it's on the table. It's obvious. The discredits that this gentleman, that I know very well from very other circumstances, the discredit that he set upon the United Nations is absolutely immense. The damage he done is enormous. But of course, that if someone would like to look at these events, uh, you would never start by incriminating a person like Sheikh Kabir. Of course, before that, it was Sheikh Hasina. Yeah, that's obviously political, as we all know. I think it is. I mean, this conversation on the ICT, that they should be treated as ICT. I mean, in my view, proves exactly the opposite. That it never came to her minds to shoot, to tell, to shoot, to kill, whatever. But it was a rebellion, and apparently thousands of policemen have been murdered. Thousands, actually, much more than this 1,400. Thousands. I mean, I can imagine if a policeman is about to be murdered, he's going to shoot before he dies. You know? So, I mean, there are a lot of things that we should know, we should investigate, but of course, we need to have credible authorities to do it, and unfortunately, they are not there. That's the reality, and we have this situation where the facts and the what is then invented, because the facts are Mr. Yunus claimed 800 victims, then the report of the United Nations claimed 1,400. Actually, there are many more, perhaps some days later or not, between the people connected with the Awami League, killed in jail, slaughtered everywhere, policemen. I mean, there are many more, and all of them, of course, should be seen in a fair way, in a way to seek justice, not to make political propaganda or nothing. You know, it's no. I mean, actually, I do think that's fundamental to get the country in peace with itself. It's not going to happen soon, you know, because with these people in charge, it's impossible. But this has to remain a big concern. And I think we have to look very critically to the way that the international community acted. Um, Actually, they never changed, you know, from 71. I mean, did the United States ever ask pardon for its cooperation in the genocide of 71? It did not. It's absolutely shameful. Did the European allies of the United Kingdom, that has a big responsibility, did they ever ask any sort of pardon? Did they ever try to put the truth on the front of the people? They never did. They continued all the business they have done with Pakistan. They continued with all their pseudo geopolitical thoughts that are, most of them are ridiculous. They just don't know what they are doing and what they are thinking, and actually costing the lives of people. So, but worse than that, you know, I think I really got a look on this 2006 nomination of the bank and Mr. Yunus as Nobel Peace Prizes. You know, as we know, the Nobel Committee has been using this procedure to promote people that are in principle opponents to dictatorships, and that will be, presumably good leaders in the future. We are seeing now this with Venezuela, for instance. There has been other cases, for instance, the one of Myanmar. A lot of people have been criticizing a lot, oh, she should be stripped of her credentials. But, I've been in Myanmar, and I did understand one thing, that this racism against Bengalis, because that's the way we should treat them. Some of them are not Muslims, some of them are Hindus, is absolutely enshrined. It has been enshrined, and actually the colonial power allowed it to be enshrined. And so, of course, I'm not condoning this, but I understand how she did it. After being there, I understood how she did it. Of course, it's preposterous, but I understand. And I also understood that whoever nominated her for the Nobel Peace Prize, of course, did not have this in mind. But getting to Mr. Yunus, the situation is completely different, because what the message was, well, Bangladesh is not possible to govern because of the two ladies. Yeah, I remember. The expression was, oh, the two ladies, yeah. But actually, the two ladies, one of them is, as we know, in very serious health problems, and I would like to say that I would expect her to recover. But the two ladies, well, better or less better, they were the democratic expression of the country. I mean, even if we do not like, I do not. I'm not conservative, of course, I'm not against conservatives, but even if we do not like, and if we think that there is a lot of things, they were actually an expression, a popular expression. And of course, democracy is not a system that is very ordered and very, very good. We know that very well. We do not need to look at Bangladesh. I think that the United States or the United Kingdom or the European Union are very, very, very good to understand this. So then the underlying message was, oh, Bangladesh is not for democracy. It's for somebody like Yunus. Yunus had zero credentials, democratic credentials. Not only, read whatever he said all the time. Did he ever present himself for popular vote? No. Did he ever say, command the democratic system? No. The party was trying to make in 2006 already. He then, he made his calculations. He saw, well, the military will not have sufficient force to put me there, so he gave up. But the underlying thought was non-democratic solutions for Bangladesh. That's it. And the United Nations nominated Mr. Yunus. I saw his CV. It's impressive. He was everything in the United Nations, presiding committees that never ended. And so the United Nations was a bit like considering, oh, he's our man. He's our man, not in Havana, but in Dhaka. Okay. But this is criminal from the Western world. This is completely criminal and idiotic, and they did not. If the attitude would have been different, which was, yes, the two ladies are, fundamental. We have to go for them. Of course, we have to be careful. We can never allow, someone like a son of one of the ladies, as we know, that was convicted by a court, and by a real court, that was not even with people nominated by Awami League, for terrorism, for killing dozens of people, and he is accepted as a political refugee in the United Kingdom. But the United Kingdom does not accept Sheikh Hasina. Okay, very, very telling of the United Kingdom that we have. So this, for instance, is preposterous from the West. But if this would be done in a different way, accepting the democratic facts as they are from Bangladesh, and of course trying to to cope as much as possible and trying to install the culture of not the winner takes all, checks and balances. The culture is not there. The culture is not there in Bangladesh. No, but it is essential. There is no democracy without it. If things would have been different, if, for instance, in 2024, the Western diplomacies would have not been pressing BNP to boycott the election, they did. They obviously did. I saw it. Things could have been different. And Bangladesh could be in a different situation right now. So the West has been really shamefully implicated in the problems that we are facing there. And we have to point this out, and we have to say that to our leaders.
Yeah, and it's kind of history repeats itself, isn't it? From 1971, that's exactly what was happening. The West didn't play the role that you would expect them to, and we had the genocide. I'm just going to say, from your comments and from Masum's comment, it seems like democracy doesn't exist in Bangladesh, and no justice system in Bangladesh at the moment. And I did say at the beginning that was one of the reasons I agreed to come and host this, because democracy is very important to me. An interim government, what powers do they have? Because they're not voted in, they're not democratically elected. To me, their role should have been to move Bangladesh into a democratically elected remit. I know there's plans perhaps next year for that to happen, but doesn't interim government have any power in influencing and dismantling legal systems in a country? Assume, I don't know.
They promised to do so, but
is it in the
in
constitution
order
to do
to
so?
legal reform is a big thing. It is something
Right.
like flattening corrugated iron with a hammer. It is that much difficult. Unless the legal culture, the people are prepared and taught about the nuances of legal niceties, any real reform cannot take place. Law cannot be revealed from upper position. That is the Austinian syndrome of law. Law is the command of the sovereign. It does not reflect the will of the people.
No.
So I'm pretty sure once the new government, elected government, if at all, election takes place, I'm afraid that election is in an uncertain situation. If at all, a true elected government is installed in Bangladesh, only they can decide about the fate of all these reforms. And I'm pretty sure majority of the ordinances, reforms done so far, will not stand in the parliament, will not stand in the Supreme Court itself. Whole Supreme Court has been changed. The senior collegium of judges, they were unlawfully outthrown. The Chief Justice was outthrown. The judges were appointed without conformity to the Constitution. Now, you can easily imagine what is happening. Now, coming to, having said so, let me clarify this matter, that with the passage of time, over this 1.5 years by now, the whole design is very crystal clear. Even you might have observed that Miss Tilif Siddiq, the British MP's conviction, without any credible charges, is an extension of this political motivation. Because the target is that by hook or by crook, you abstain a particular political party and destroying their images, family members, and hold them in participating in the election, and thereby, barring the empowerment of the people of Bangladesh in the light of the spirit of 1971 and the founding principles of Bangladesh: nationalism, secularism, democracy, right? And socialism. Now, I also sense a kind of retribution, a display of retributionist approach within the judges themselves. You can remember when the trial was going on, a contempt petition was lodged against Sheikh Hasina, and the court found no time to award 6-month sentences in her absence and shamelessly continued trying her, like violating the presumption of innocence doctrine. In the judgment, they are trying that we have decided to inflict death sentence. Now tell me, is inflicting death sentence is something to be decided, or it is something to be judicially exquisitely risked at based on the evidence and proof? This was not in this case. Now, surprisingly, Paolo will be surprised probably. The Volker Turk's unwanted comment in the publication ceremony, where Professor Yunus and Asif Nazrul was present, that crimes was against humanity had taken place, but the report itself does not say so. Now, the tribunal is referring to the sentence, to the utterance of Volker Turk as a reliance of their evidence. Does Volker Turk know it? Now look at the international standard of justice. So I must argue through you, Paolo, through the international community, that they must show an interest in Bangladesh's justice process and to encourage Bangladesh's government to hold this politically driven, trial of Sheikh Hasina and her colleagues. Let full-fledged justice be taken place, and for that, at the very outset, a free, fair, international, open, UN-sponsored, full-fledged investigation must take place for the 2024 July incidents. And only then the justice process can take place. Otherwise, the justice, this trial is not excellent. It has far-reaching consequences for Bangladesh. Number one, the political leaders like herself in future will be indicted. Number two, that absentia trial, the trend of absentia trial will be increased in many parts of the globe. Number three, that the political instability, both in Bangladesh, even regional instability, even its impact will be felt globally, because many people in Bangladesh has been persecuted and they have forced to leave the country, and they have created undue pressure, overwhelming pressure in the European migration phenomenon as well. And it will encourage the musical chair sitting of the justice system in Bangladesh. Even, Bavlin, to my estimation, the ICT in Bangladesh did not follow Bangladesh has set previously. It has also compromised the very standard of Bangladesh, let alone international justice standard.
Yeah.
So I retire here.
Thank you. We have gone just beyond an hour, but it's been a very interesting discussion, and I think we could go on forevermore, because what is happening in Bangladesh is very, a serious matter, and it's going to dictate not only what's happening in Bangladesh, but it's going to have an impact internationally, and which is why it was useful having both of our discussion leads basically today. Paolo Casacca, I thank you for your interest and your kind of devotion to what is happening in Bangladesh, and what you are doing to get more European and beyond interest in playing, because well, as I said, it has a whole implication of human rights, doesn't it? What is happening, and It was interesting to see as soon as the trial verdict was announced around Sheikh Hasina, the United Nations Human Rights very firmly said, we are not, we're not in agreement, and we have our concerns of that verdict. And we've heard that from different platforms, but getting a stronger commitment to make this right for Bangladesh means making it right for us worldwide, of course. And thank you very much to Masoom too for his technical details, because it's very important when we are discussing legal trials to understand the legalities that influence those the judgment of those trials, to be honest, whether they were fair or not. And it was very clearly described in terms of what the legalities that were to some extent violated or amended or misused or disconstructed, so it was useful to know that from Masoom too. I thank you both for your time today and dedication. There is a petition, I believe, on this very matter around Bangladesh trials, urgent call to action and around the political driven trials, as we classed it at ICT in Bangladesh on change.org, that we would encourage more people to sign and support that petition and share that petition. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening in, and thank you for your participation. Thank you.